The lockdown terror of the day started off like any other, with the usual hum of students chatting in the hallways and the occasional shuffling of feet as we moved between classes. I was in the middle of my maths lecture, trying to ignore Mr. Reynolds' monotonous voice, when the school intercom crackled to life. "Attention, students and staff. We are initiating a lockdown. Please follow all procedures and remain in your classrooms." A hush fell over the room. My heart began to pound in my chest. Lockdowns weren't uncommon, but they usually involved false alarms or drills. This felt different. Mr. Reynolds was already at the door, checking the lock, while the students around me exchanged nervous glances. I tried to stay calm, but a sense of dread was creeping over me. I glanced at my friend Sarah, who was sitting across the aisle. Her face was pale, her eyes wide. She whispered, "Do you think it's serious?" "I hope not," I replied, though my voice wavered. The minutes ticked by slowly. I could hear the distant sound of sirens wailing outside, growing louder and more urgent. My mind raced with scenarios, none of them good. As we waited, I tried to focus on the hum of the fluorescent lights above us, the steady rhythm of my own breathing. Then, the lights flickered, and a loud bang echoed down the hallway. The classroom fell into a tense silence. I could hear muffled voices from outside the door, but the words were indistinguishable. A shiver ran down my spine. "What was that?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. "I don't know," I said, "but we need to stay quiet and stay put." We huddled together in the corner of the room, our backs pressed against the wall. The noise outside continued, punctuated by occasional thuds and shuffling sounds. I could feel the tension building, a palpable weight in the air. I glanced at my phone, but there was no signal. The lockdown must have cut off all communication. My anxiety grew with each passing minute. The school was eerily silent except for the unsettling noises outside. Then, suddenly, the intercom crackled again. This time, the voice was different, distorted and harsh. "Hello, students. How's everyone holding up? I hope you're all enjoying your little game." A chill swept through the room. The voice was chillingly calm, yet it carried a sinister edge. My heart raced as I exchanged worried glances with Sarah. "Who's doing this?" she whispered. "I don't know," I replied, "but we need to stay calm." The lights flickered once more, and then they went out completely. The room plunged into darkness. A collective gasp filled the air. I fumbled for my phone, but the screen remained black. The only source of light was the faint glow from the hallway that seeped through the small window in the door. The shadows seemed to stretch and twist, and the room felt colder. I could hear whispers from the students, growing louder as fear took hold. Suddenly, a loud, screeching noise cut through the darkness, followed by a series of frantic bangs. It sounded like someone, or something, was trying to break into the room. Panic spread among us as we huddled closer together. The door rattled violently, and then, as suddenly as it started, the noise stopped. The room was once again shrouded in eerie silence. I tried to steady my breathing, but my hands were shaking uncontrollably. My eyes darted around, searching for any sign of what was happening outside. "What's happening?" Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. "I don't know," I said, my voice trembling, "but we need to stay quiet and wait for help." Minutes felt like hours. The silence was unbearable, broken only by the occasional creak of the building and the distant, unsettling sounds that continued to echo through the halls. My thoughts were a whirlwind of fear and confusion. What kind of situation were we dealing with? Finally, the intercom crackled again. The distorted voice spoke once more, this time with a mocking tone. "Looks like you're all having a hard time. How unfortunate. I wonder how long you'll last." My blood ran cold. The voice was taunting us, and the fear in the room was palpable. I could see the panic in my classmates' eyes, the same fear that was gripping me. Suddenly, the door to our classroom burst open. We all jumped, our hearts racing, but instead of the intruder we feared, it was Principal Hayes, looking disheveled and out of breath. "Stay down," she ordered as she rushed into the room and closed the door behind her. "The situation has escalated. We need to stay hidden." The room erupted into a flurry of questions and relief. Principal Hayes quickly assessed the situation and turned to us, her face pale but determined. "We're dealing with an intruder, possibly more than one," she said. "We have to stay quiet and wait for the authorities to get here. No matter what you hear, do not make a sound." We nodded, our fear now mixed with a glimmer of hope. The principal took a seat on the floor, and we followed suit, trying to make ourselves as inconspicuous as possible. The tension in the room was almost unbearable, each of us lost in our own thoughts, listening intently for any signs of danger. Minutes dragged on, the silence now more oppressive than ever. The distant sounds of chaos outside seemed to grow more distant, and the tension in the room remained high. The only comfort was Principal Hayes' presence, which offered some reassurance amidst the fear. After what felt like an eternity, we heard a new sound, the distant wail of sirens growing louder. The noise outside began to diminish, and the tension in the room started to ease. The intercom crackled once more, and the voice was gone. Instead, we heard the reassuring sound of footsteps and the occasional voice, indicating that help had arrived. Principal Hayes stood up, signaling us to follow her. We moved cautiously towards the door, our hearts still racing. As the door opened, we were greeted by the sight of police officers and emergency responders. The sight of their uniforms was a welcome relief. "We're here to help," one of the officers said, guiding us out of the room. "The situation is under control. You're safe now." We were led out of the building, the cold night air a stark contrast to the oppressive atmosphere we had been trapped in. The campus was filled with the sounds of sirens and the hum of activity as authorities worked to secure the area. As I looked back at the school, a wave of relief washed over me. The nightmare was over, but the memory of that night would linger. The fear, the uncertainty, and the eerie voice still haunted me. In the days that followed, the school returned to normal, but the incident left a lasting mark on all of us. We learned that the lockdown had been a test of sorts, orchestrated by someone with a twisted sense of humor. But for those of us who had lived through it, it was a terrifying reminder of how quickly the familiar can turn into something nightmarish. As I walked through the halls of the school, I could still feel the echo of that night, a haunting reminder of the fear that had gripped us all and the strength we found in facing it together.